During the Victorian era, freak shows and sideshows traveled around the UK and US, featuring people with rare physical anomalies and malformations. These shows aimed to attract middle-class spectators by showcasing performers who represented imperfections in an otherwise perfectionist society. Some of the most famous performers included the Seven Sutherland Sisters, known for their extremely long hair, Randian, the human caterpillar, who could perform tasks using only his mouth, and John Merrick, known as the Elephant Man, due to a severe deformity. But today we'll look at 15 most creepy circus show freaks that actually existed. Let's start off with number 15, Rudy Santos, the Octoman. Rudy was born in 1953 in the Philippines, and this guy carried one of the rarest conditions ever recorded in the history of humankind. Circus crowds in the 1970s and 80s knew him as Octoman, the man with 4 arms and 3 legs. His condition came from a parasitic twin fused into his body. Out of it grew an extra leg, 2 arms with shoulders, an additional pair of nipples, and even an undeveloped head on his chest with an ear and patch of hair. His own leg bent at the knee, forcing him to walk with crutches. Doctors offered him surgery in 2008, but Rudy refused. That's because poverty and a strange emotional bond kept him attached to what he carried for his whole life. He withdrew from fame in the late 80s, living quietly. In 2023, he died from a stroke, leaving behind his great niece, Emma Leftwich. Santos remains the oldest person ever recorded with this condition, remembered both for his suffering and his resilience. Number 14, Storstina. Christina Katharina Larsdottir, aka Storstina, was born in Brennus on January 19, 1819. By age 18, she stood nearly 2 meters tall and was quickly exhibited across Sweden as the giant girl from Lapland. In March 1837, she arrived in Stockholm, where large crowds gathered to see her, and she was even presented to King Carl XIV Johan. Medical experts at the Karolinska Institute examined her, confirming she was female, though rumors claimed otherwise. She kept traveling, visiting Denmark, Germany, France, and England, gaining recognition as the Lapland Giantess, tallest woman in the world. Intelligent and independent, she spoke several languages, read widely, and often handled her own business. When she came back home, she cleared her parents' debts and secured land of her own. Her final years were marked by illness, and in 1854, at just 35, she died after contracting gangrene during a snowstorm. Soon after, her remains were exhumed and studied at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. It's disrespectful. Number 13, Rick Ginest. Rick became famous worldwide as Zombie Boy for tattooing over 90% of his body, including a skull design across his face. His early years were spent homeless, dreaming of circus life before he began tattooing at 16. Over time, his ink gained him 2 Guinness records: most insect tattoos, 178, and most bones tattooed, 138. His striking appearance brought him into fashion when Nicola Formichetti of Mugler introduced him to Lady Gaga, leading to his iconic role in her 2011 video, Born This Way. Despite global recognition, Ginest remained grounded in Montreal, part of a community of punks and artists. Friends described him as quiet, kind, and deeply loyal, never boasting about fame. He used his platform to support youth shelters and causes for marginalized people. On August 1, 2018, Ginest died at age 32. Lady Gaga called the loss beyond devastating. His image remains a symbol of individuality and defiance. Number 12, Sam Alexander. Sam was not born with any weird condition. His life changed in his 20s when, according to most accounts, he struck a match near gasoline and suffered deadly burns to his face. Doctors attempted multiple surgeries, but full reconstruction was estimated to take over 15 years. The accident left him withdrawn and isolated until a surgeon eventually created a lifelike prosthetic mask. With it, Sam re-entered life and turned his suffering into art. He joined Ringling Bros, Barnum, and the Clyde Beatty Circus, where he shared his story before removing the mask as part of his act. Audiences were stunned, but his courage became his hallmark. Later, he formed his own sideshow troupe, helping others find work in the industry. Even after further surgeries, he continued wearing the mask until retiring. In 1997, he died of natural causes, remembered for both his resilience and the way he turned personal tragedy into a career that inspired others. Number 11. Count Orloff. Ivano Vladislaus von Dziarski-Orloff, remembered as Count Orloff, fascinated crowds as the so-called transparent and ossified man. Born in Budapest, he lived a normal childhood until, at 14, his health collapsed. Weakness overtook him, and chronic pain made him dependent on opium. What drew audiences most was his body's eerie appearance. Thin skin made his veins and arteries appear exposed, so clear that newspapers claimed you could read print through his torso when lit from behind. Advertisements called him ossified, though whether he truly suffered bone disease remains uncertain. His shows displayed him as part medical wonder, part ghostly apparition. Over time, Orloff built his own sideshow business, profiting from the fascination he inspired. His condition left him frail, but his image lingered in memory as something both human and spectral. He wasn't just billed as the human window pane. To spectators, he was living proof of the uncanny, a man whose suffering turned him into spectacle. Number 10. The Seal Boy. Stanislaus Barent was born in Pittsburgh in 1901. His shortened arms, caused by a condition known as phocomelia, resulted from a genetic mutation, not, as many presume, from chemical exposure. Phocomelia later became widely linked to thalidomide, a drug that led to severe birth defects in more than 10,000 children in the 1950s and 60s. By most accounts, Stanley was first discovered selling newspapers before gaining traction in nearly every major American sideshow and dime museum. Performing as CeeLo, a nod to the seal-like appearance of his arms, his act showcased daily tasks done with customized tools and creative ingenuity. His charm left a lasting impression. While touring with Ward Hall, CeeLo grew close to a chimpanzee that fiercely defended him from hecklers. For comfort or medical reasons, CeeLo preferred staying in hotels rather than circus trailers. No one ever objected. In 1972, he helped abolish a Florida law banning handicapped performers. He retired in 1976, and then in 1980, he met with his creator. Number 9. The Matina Brothers. Leo and his younger twin brothers, Bela and Matyus, were born in Hungary to John and Maria Matina. Bela and Matyus, later nicknamed Mike and Ike, stood just 32 inches tall as adults. The brothers began performing after German promoter Karl Schaffer recruited them as children, eventually touring Europe, Asia, and Australia before reaching the U.S. In 1917, they joined the Ringling Brothers Circus, performing in Madison Square Garden and even selling war bonds dressed as soldiers. They later appeared as Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz and had also inspired Walt Disney's dwarfs in Snow White. By the 1940s, they were living in Suffolk, Virginia, where they remained beloved figures. Mike died in a 1954 vehicle accident while on tour. Ike passed away in 1965 from a heart attack, and Leo followed in 1975. Their legacy remains tied to circus history, Hollywood, and the cultural memory of the world's most famous little performers. Number 8. Peter Robinson. Peter Robinson was born in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1874. He lived his life in extremes that you simply can't imagine. Known professionally as the human skeleton, his body weighed barely 60 pounds at adulthood. His fragile frame stood beside his wife, Bunny Smith, a fat lady performer who weighed nearly 470 pounds. Together, they became a living example of sideshow spectacle, a real Jack Sprat story. Robinson began his career in the 1890s, working at Coney Island before joining major circuses, including Ringling Brothers. His fame grew with Todd Browning's 1932 cult classic Freaks, where he played a skeletal role that left audiences unsettled. Yet away from the stage, Robinson lived like any man of his time. He married, traveled, and performed tirelessly for decades. His contrast with Bunny was often exploited in advertising, but it made them unforgettable. He continued touring until later years, remembered both as a showman and as a symbol of the era when bodies themselves were turned into theater. Number 7. Gargantua. Gargantua the Great wasn't just a gorilla. He was the savior of a circus on the brink of collapse. Born wild and once called Buddy, he was scarred after an accident and became infamous for his rage. In 1938, Ringling Brothers billed him as the world's most terrifying living creature, and audiences poured in. His hulking body, snarling face, and reputation for hating humans turned him into an instant phenomenon. Posters showed him glowering through steel bars, and promoters fueled the myth by keeping him isolated. In a publicity stunt, a second gorilla dubbed Mrs. Gargantua was introduced, but he ignored her completely. It hardly mattered. The crowds were hooked. He wasn't trained for tricks or costumes. He was raw spectacle. Under the big top, Gargantua became a living headline, drawing record-breaking audiences and dragging Ringling Brothers out of financial ruin. He didn't juggle, dance, or smile. He embodied strength, fear, and awe. Number 6. Hannah Battersby. Hannah Jane Battersby, born around 1836 in Rome, Maine, became one of the most famous fat ladies of the 19th century. She toured with Barnum and Bailey alongside Lavinia Warren and Charles Stratton, often billed as the fattest woman in America. By the 1880s, reports claimed she weighed over 700 pounds and earned salaries many times higher than average workers. Whether her true weight matched those numbers didn't matter. Audiences adored her. Married to John Battersby, the human skeleton, she was often photographed beside him, their extreme contrast carefully marketed. Their daughter Zenobia occasionally toured as well, though her story ended tragically young. Hannah was a businesswoman in her own right, selling carte de visite photographs to fans and building a reputation that made her a standard in her field. Ill health followed her final years, and in 1889, she died in Philadelphia. For decades, her name remained the measure by which later fat ladies were compared. She was beautiful. Number 5. Captain George Auger. Auger, born William Henry Auger in Cardiff in 1881, became a legend of spectacle. By age 18, he had already reached an astonishing 7 feet 4 inches. At just 12, he lied about his age to enlist in the Royal Marines, but didn't last long in service. He later worked as a theater doorman, married dancer Elizabeth Hearn, and eventually found his calling in entertainment. In 1904, the couple traveled to New York, where Auger joined Barnum and Bailey. He became a U.S. citizen, wrote a play titled Jack the Giant Killer, and toured endlessly across America. In 1922, just before filming Why Worry? With Harold Lloyd, Auger died unexpectedly after Thanksgiving dinner. His body was so large it had to be lowered through a second-story window. His bulldog, Ringling, reportedly howled during the ordeal. Though buried in an unmarked grave, Auger left behind a legacy larger than life itself, remembered as the true Cardiff Giant. Now let's move to number 4, Sandra Reed. Sandra Reed, born with albinism, carved her place in circus history as a daring sword swallower. At 24, she joined James E. Straight's shows in 1969, first as a lecturer on albinism. Encouraged by showman Whitney Sutton, she soon mastered the ancient art of sword swallowing under the guidance of Ricky Ricciardi in Gibsonton, Florida. Her family supported her entirely. Her sister Doreen, also albino, lectured beside her. Their father sold tickets, and their mother worked backstage. Sandra quickly moved to Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, performing with confidence and flair. In the mid-1970s, she married Harold Big Jim Spone, a fellow performer billed as the Fat Man. Between 1975 and 1977, Sandra held the Guinness World Record for most swords swallowed by a woman, managing 5 blades at once. Her portrait later appeared in Shocked and Amazed, a history of sideshow culture. Sandra Reed stood proud, proving that mastery of spectacle was hers on her own terms. Number 3. Anna Swan. Anna Swan was born on August 6, 1846, in Nova Scotia, Canada, and from childhood her extraordinary height set her apart. By age 4, she measured 4 feet 6 inches. At 10, she stood 6 feet 1, and as an adult, she reached a remarkable 7 feet 5 inches. At 17, she joined P.T. Barnum's American Museum in New York. In 1865, tragedy nearly claimed her life when the museum caught fire. Weighing over 350 pounds, Anna was unable to escape through the windows, but was rescued at the last moment. She later toured Europe and performed before Queen Victoria herself. In 1871, she married fellow giant Martin Van Buren Bates, who stood 7 feet 9 inches. Together, they became an iconic pair, admired not only for their size, but also for their dignity. They lived on a farm in Ohio, drawing constant curiosity. Anna died at 41 in 1888. Number 2. Lady Olga. Jane Barnell, also known as Lady Olga, became one of the most recognized bearded ladies in circus history. Born in Wilmington, North Carolina in the 1870s, her childhood was harsh. Her mother, ashamed of her condition, sold her to a traveling show at age 4 while her father was away. Abandoned in Europe, she was eventually found and rescued by her father, but the path of sideshow life had already been set. As an adult, she joined John Robinson's Circus in the 1890s and later performed with Ringling Brothers, Barnum, Four-Paw Cells, Dreamland in Coney Island, and Hubert's Museum in Times Square. Her beard, authentic and once measured at 13 inches, was advertised as the longest in the world. In 1932, she appeared in Todd Browning's cult film Freaks, playing herself with quiet pride. Of Russian, Jewish, and Catawba heritage, Jane embodied both strength and defiance. She retired to private life, passing away in 1951. Number 1. Admiral Dot. Backtrack to 1868. Barnum's museum had just burned down once again. Many assumed he was done, but not even close. While visiting San Francisco, Barnum heard about Leopold S. Kahn, a little person rumored to be even smaller than Tom Thumb. Barnum acted fast, renamed him Admiral Dot, and proudly displayed him in his hotel lobby for several weeks. Soon after, Dot joined Barnum's latest venture, P.T. Barnum's Grand Traveling Museum, Menagerie, Caravan, and Circus. Dot also performed with the American Lilliputian Company before later joining Barnum's rival, Adam Forepaugh. In 1892, he married fellow performer Lottie Swartwood and settled in White Plains, New York, where he founded the Admiral Dot Hotel, fondly nicknamed Hotel Pee-wee. Tragically, both he and his daughter were lost to the 1918 influenza pandemic. Despite his height, Admiral Dot's impact was towering in circus history, cementing his place alongside the most memorable names to ever grace the sideshow world. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.